We begin today the Gemara on Daf Kuf Yud Gimel on Aleph right at the beginning of the Yamud. The Gemara here is discussing there are two different kinds of Kiddushin that Rabbanan were misaken. One is for a Ketana and another is for a Chareshes, a deaf mute. And the Gemara will point out certain distinctions that there are between these two, even though seemingly they should have the same halacha. They are Kiddushin that the Rabbanan instituted for them. So, frek the Gemara. Ma'ishna Ketana. What is the difference that when it comes to the Kiddushin of a Ketana, the halacha is the Achle Betruma. If she's getting married to a Kayin, she's a Yisraelis, and she's getting married to a Kayin, she can eat Truma. As the Gemara will soon bring the source for this. Why is it when it comes to a Chareshes that got married to a Kayin, the Lo Achle Betruma? She cannot eat Truma. The Tanan, as we see here, the Mishnah says, hey, Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgede, Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgede testified, Al Chareshes she'sia via a Chareshes, her father married her off. So when her father marries her off, this is actually a marriage min ha-Torah. A father does have the koyach to marry a Chareshes min ha-Torah. She'yotze beget. But then later on, her husband could divorce her, because as we learned in the Mishnah, the man has to have das when he gives a get, but the woman does not. So even though she's a Chareshes, he could divorce her. And then he said another thing, which is what's relevant for what we're learning here now. Val ketana bas Yisrael shenisis l'kayin, a ketana, which is a bas Yisrael that gets married to a kayin, sheicheles betruma, that she could eat truma. That's what the Brisa says. So, or this is actually a Mishnah in Idias. So the Mishnah begins speaking about a ketana. So again, it begins speaking about a chareshes, and then it carries on speaking about a ketana. V'ilu, now the Gemara is medayik. V'ilu chareshes lo yachla. But when it comes to a Chareshes, she does not eat Truma. From the very fact that he's switching from a Chareshes to a Ketana, that shows you that a Chareshes married to a Kain does not eat Truma. So what's the difference? So the Gemara explains as follows. Gzeire, because now if a Chareshes marries a Kain, which is a Pikeach, so there's a Gzeire, Shema Yachil Cheresh Bechareshes. There may be a Cheresh, which is a Kain, that marries a Bas Yisrael, which is a Chareshes, she may come to eat Truma as well. And we don't want her to eat Truma. So as Rashi points out it right away, this answer that the Gemara says right now is not really the answer. This is an incomplete answer. Why would there be a problem of a Chareshes eating Truma if she marries a Kayin which is a Cheresh? I mean, that was our whole question. If a Chareshes marries a Kayin which is a Pikeach, so we're asking that she should eat Truma. So the Gemara says, no, because then a Chareshes that marries a Kayin, a Cheresh will come to eat Truma. And what's the problem with that? And the Gemara now asks actually even more of a question. Frek the Gemara, V'leichel. So let this Chareshes eat Truma. And why are we going to make a special Gzeira for this? Cotton eichel nevelis hu. This goes into the category of when we see a cotton that eats nevelis. This is going to be a sugya we're going to learn tomorrow, and Rashi mentioned it already before. Anytime a bezdin sees a cotton eating nevelis, they do not have the obligation of stopping him of eating things that are nevelis and treifis and so on. So over here, you can't say that Chachamim are making a certain gezeira regarding this Chareshes, that she should not eat Truma, because there's another Chareshes that may come to eat Truma. Even if she's not supposed to eat Truma, and she eats Truma, it doesn't matter. We don't have to stop her. We don't have to make a special gezeira for this. So the Gemara says, the gezeira then though is, gezeira shema yachol cheresh b'pikachas. What happens if a pikachas, which means a healthy woman, that's a Bas Yisrael, that gets married to a Kayin which is a Cheresh, and this marriage as well is not a marriage min ha-Torah, and she might come to eat Truma. Now she's a Pikachas, so she is eating Truma, and she's not allowed to eat Truma. You can't say that she's like a cotton or she's a Ketana that's eating Truma and she's not allowed. She's a Pikachas, and her marriage is not a marriage min ha-Torah, and she's eating Truma. That's the Gzeira that we're geyser for. So as Rashi explains, this is an interesting Gzeira. The Gzeira is, in the case of a Chareshes that's marrying a Kayin, that's a Pikeach, we're geyser that case because you could confuse that with the case of a Cheresh and a Chareshes. And the case of a Cheresh and a Chareshes could then be confused with the case of a Cheresh and a Pikachas, and we don't want a Pikachas to eat Truma. Because again, a Pikachas, she's a Bazdas, she's not allowed to eat the Truma in a case where the marriage is just Midrabanan.
Why not?
Huh? Because she's not married min ha-Torah to this Kayin. She's not married min ha-Torah to the Kayin, so how could she eat Truma? Simple. One second, the Gemara has one more question on this.
Why did they make the Gzeira for it?
And not to confuse one with the other. Okay, one second. Let's see the Hemshech of the Gemara. The Gemara still has the question on this. V'cheresh b'pikachas nami lechol b'truma derabanan. Even if a cheresh that's married to a pikachas, so it's not a real marriage min ha-Torah. but let her eat truma midrabanan. And so truma midrabanan we had before. The Moshe, what's the example of a truma midrabanan? According to Rashi, truma midrabanan is all fruits that grow on trees are all, besides tirish yitzar, wine and olives. Anything else, it's truma midrabanan. So let her eat from truma midrabanan. The marriage is midrabanan. Let her eat truma midrabanan. So the Gemara says, you're right, that wouldn't be a problem. But if we're going to allow her to eat truma d'rabanan, she might come to eat a truma min ha-Torah, and therefore we're geyser that all of these cases, a cheresh with a pikachas, a chereshes with a cheresh, or a pikachas with a cheresh, they should not eat any truma, so that this pikachas, that she's a healthy woman and she has a das and she's not allowed to eat the truma, that she should not come to eat the truma min ha-Torah. That's the gzeira regarding a chereshes. But now this gzeira does not apply when you get to a cotton that marries a katana or a kohen that marries a katana, because by there is no marriage for a cotton. The whole gzeira only applies over here regarding a cheresh that marries a pikachas. The pikachas might come to truma. A kohen which is a cotton that would marry a bas Yisrael, which is a gedolah, there's no such a scenario. A man that's a cotton, there's no marriage for him b'chlal. Okay, weiter. The Gemara now has another question. A certain halacha that we see that's a distinction between a katana and a chareshes. What's the difference when it comes to a katana? The isla ksuba. Chachamu were misakin for her that if her husband divorces her, she has to get paid her ksuba money. Umayshna chareshes the less ksuba. And why is it by a chareshes there is no ksuba? The Gemara is going to soon bring the braise or a mishnah where we see this distinction. So the Gemara explains the reason is the imkain mimni v'loy nasfilah, because if for a chareshes if for a katana that is, there won't be any ksubah, so then people are not going to want to get married to this katana. So the Gemara here brings the source for this, a katana minol on this ksubah. Where do we see regarding this katana that she gets a ksubah? The Tanan, because there's a Mishnah that says, hamimaenes, a girl which is a katana and refuses her marriage and leaves the marriage without a get. Vashniya, or a marriage which was with a woman that's a erva, midrabanan. Va'ailanis, or a woman that got married and the husband thought she could have children and it turns out she can't, so the whole marriage is a mekach tas. Ein len ksuba. So when they leave their husband, they don't get any ksuba. Aval, so this is what the Mishnah says. But what do we see from this? Aval yaitze beget, or this is part of the Mishnah, yaitze beget to ketana. If this ketana is leaving with a get, yesh la ksuba. So she does get a ksuba. So here we see this Mishnah that a ketana gets a ksuba. The chareshes minol on the less ksuba. And how do I know that a chareshes does not get a ksuba? The Tanya, because there's a brayse that says cheresh v'shoite shenosu pikchos. A cheresh and a shoite, the man is a cheresh and a shoite, and he gets married to a healthy wife. Aval pishin is pakeach. Even if later on he became healed and he became healthy, shenes pakeach a cheresh. So this man that was deaf mute became healthy, and v'nishtafa a shoite, and he was a shoite and he became healthy. Eilem aleim klum. Because at the time when he married them, it wasn't a marriage min ha-Torah, and he was a cheresh or he was a shaita, so from that point he had no obligation to give them a ksubah. So even if later he became healthy, and if he's divorcing them now, he doesn't have to give them anything. Ratzu l'kaimon, however, if he wants to continue living with his wife, and now he's going to continue living with them from here going forward as a healthy man, so now yesh lam ksubah, he's going to be obligated to give them a ksubah. And then the Braisa says, if it's the other way around, the man is healthy, he's a pikeyach, and he marries a woman which is a chareshes, or she's a shaita. If he decides that he's going to write into the ksubah that he's going to give them a ksubah of 100 money, so then the ksubah is kayemes, he's going to have to fulfill what he obligated himself to give them. And the Braisa says why? He wants to bring damage to his properties. He decides he wants to give them this money. He's not obligated. But if he wants to give it, gesundheit, he can go ahead and give it, then he'll be obligated to give. So the Gemara now says, so what do we see here clearly? When a Pekech marries a Chareshes, time with the Ratza. If he wants, so then he can give. Halei Ratza, but if he doesn't want, then he does not have to give. Ein law, he doesn't have to give her anything. And why? And the Gemara says, the imkain, if we obligate a man to pay a chareshes ksuba money, mim nivle nasfila. He's not going to want to go ahead and marry her, because why should I marry this chareshes if there's no benefits of marrying her? So, but if you say that marrying a chareshes, it's much less of a risk than marrying a regular wife, because if I have to divorce, I don't have to pay anything. That might be a reason why someone would marry a chareshes. Yihachi, so says the Gemara, but if so, pikachas lecheresh, if this is the idea here, that we want this chareshes to be able to get married, when it comes in the reverse, when you have a man that's a deaf mute, and we want women to want to marry this cheresh, l'sakin lo ksuba. Over here, in such a case, shouldn't Chachamim institute that this woman should get a ksuba from this cheresh, dimkem imni v'lenasvi? Because if she won't be getting a ksuba from this man, why would any woman want to marry a cheresh? Two things. First of all, he's a cheresh. Why should I want to marry a cheresh? Not only that, if I marry him, I don't even get a ksuba money when I'm divorced. So for this very reason itself, that we want a chereshes to get married, so by a cheresh, we should for sure be misakin for her that she should get a ksuba. Says the Gemara here, no. Again, Yesa mishay ish reitza lisa. More than a man wants to get married to his wife, wants to get married, that is, isha reitza lihinase. A woman is desperate to get married. So therefore, even if it's a cheresh, she's going to get married, and even if she's not getting ksuba money, we don't have to make a special takana for the woman that she has to get a ksuba in order for her to want to get married to this cheresh. But on the other way around, for a man to want to marry a chereshes, if you're not going to give him a discount that he doesn't have to give the ksuba, he's never going to want to marry this chereshes. This is usually known in the Lashon of the Gemara, tav l'meisav tandum l'meisav armlo, that for a woman, for her, it's more important for her, she wants to be married and sit with someone, whoever it is, than a man. Okay? The Gemara brings this klal many, many times. The Gemara brings an incident that happened. There was this deaf mute, a man that was living in the neighborhood of Rav Malkiyai. Ansevei Itze, so Rav Malkiyai married him off to a wife. And the kosav law Abba Me'ezuzi Menichse. He wrote into the ksuba for this cheresh that he obligates himself to pay his wife 400 zuz from his property. So this is double of the regular amount of a ksuba. So like we just learned, you're not even obligated to give any ksuba at all. But Rav Malkiyai wrote into this ksuba double than the regular ksuba. So Rava said about this, Man chakim ke Rav Malkiyai, who's as wise as Rav Malkiyai, the Gavre Rabba, who is a great person. Kasava, Rav Malkiya's rationale was as follows. If he was marrying a wife just for the purpose to have someone to serve him, to take care of him, wouldn't he have to go and buy her and pay for her? So was definitely here, this man is a deaf mute, and he's being able to, I'm giving him the opportunity to marry a wife, so he has someone to serve him and a wife. So for sure, he should pay more. So therefore, he wrote into his ksubah that he should obligate himself to pay 400 zuz. Amar Rav Chia Barashi said, Amar Shmuel, the name of Shmuel. Eishes Cheresh, the wife of a Cheresh, so she's not considered to be an Eishes Ish min HaTorah at all. And therefore, en chayav alea osham toli. If someone went and was mezana with her, there's no doubts about this, that maybe we should say that the cheresh that she married, maybe the cheresh is considered to be a regular, healthy human being, and therefore the marriage is a good marriage. There's no doubts about this. Usually when you're over a isser, and there's a suffix if you are over the isser or not, what's the halacha? You bring a osham toli, a osham for the suffix of the isser. But if you hear the Gemara says, this wife of this cheresh is for sure not a marriage, it's definite that he has no das, and therefore anyone that's mezana with this Eishes Cheresh is not an Eishes Ish. So the Gemara says we have a raya for this idea that a Cheresh has no das at all. A raya to what Shmuel said. So the first Mishnah in Masechta Truma speaks about who could take Truma. Chamisha lo yitrayim, or actually who cannot take Truma. So there are 5 that cannot take Truma. Vintarmu, and even if they did separate the Truma, ain't Trumas and Truma, it doesn't take effect at all. Ve'eluhein, Cheresh Sheite v'Kotten. So Cheresh Sheite and Cotton cannot separate Truma. And then about Teirem Esheinish Shaloi, when you take Truma from something that's not yours at all, so if it's not yours, so then you have to be appointed as a Shliach. And only then could the Truma take effect, just like the owner himself, it has to be his, and he decides he wants to take Truma from what's his, but if it's not yours, you can't take Truma. And Vayvit Kachavim Shatarim Shal Yisrael, Afilu B'Rishus Yisrael, a guy that you sent as a Shliach to separate Truma for you, so it's even if it's with your permission, ain't Truma se Truma, the Truma doesn't take effect. So this is based on the concept that there is no Shlichus for a guy. But the point is, we see here in that Mishnah, that a Cheresh that separates the Truma doesn't take effect at all. And there's no suffix about this. It doesn't take effect at all. So therefore the same over here, the wife of a cheresh, it doesn't take effect at all. But the Gemara says, not necessarily could you bring a raya from that Mishnah. Hu da'ama k'Rabbi Elazar. Maybe he holds like a different Tana that disagrees with this Mishnah. Rabbi Elazar said, the Tanya, Rabbi Yitzchak Ayim, Mishum Rabbi Elazar, Trumas cheresh, When a cheresh separates the truma, so leiteitze l'chulin, that produce cannot be can't go out to chulin. There's a suffix actually if this truma took effect. If neshu suffix, it's a suffix regarding this cheresh whether he has the ability to separate the truma or not. So maybe if Shmuel holds like that opinion, so then we should say the same thing over here, as the Gemara asks right now. Frag the Gemara, if so, isvir Rabbi Lazar. So if Shmuel holds like Rabbi Lazar regarding the truma, that there's a suffix if it takes effect. So if so, the same thing over here regarding this eishes cheresh, we should say Asham Tali Nami L'chayiv. You should be chayiv and Asham Tali as well, because could be the cheresh has das, and could be the marriage is a good marriage, and therefore this is a real eishes ish. So the Gemara answers, no, there's another rule when it comes to Asham Tali that is not fulfilled there, and therefore you don't bring an Asham Tali. Be'inon chaticha mishtei chatichas. The halacha by an Asham Tali is that let's say you have one piece of meat on the table, and there's a suffix if that piece of meat is a kosher piece of meat, or it's from if it's from the chaylev, it's from fats that are not kosher. You're not chayiv an Asham Tali. You only chayiv an Asham Tali if you have two pieces of meat on the table, and there's a vadai isser here. You just don't know which one is the isser. Is this the kosher one or is this one? You ate one of them and you're not sure which one was the isser. Then you bring an Asham Tali. It's a case of a doubt, but it's also a situation that amongst the two pieces there was a Vada Yisser. So over here, when it comes to this Eishes Cheresh, even if it's a situation where there's a suffix, whether this Cheresh has Das or not, there is no Vada Yisser here at all. Could be she's not married at all. So therefore there's no Asham Tali for this. This is how you're explaining the opinion of Shmuel according to Rabbi Eliezer. He holds like Rabbi Eliezer, or Rabbi Lazar that is. How could this be? Me, boy, Rabbi Lazar, chatiche, mishtei, chatiches. Does Rabbi Lazar himself require there to be two pieces, meaning that there's a vade issa here in order to be chayiv to bring a Asham Tali? Vatanya, but we learned in the Braisa, Rabbi Lazar himself said, Koi chayavin al chelboi. A koi, what's a koi? A koi is an animal which is a suffix if it's a chaya or a behema. The whole isser of chaylev only applies to a behema and not to a chaya. And he says, so if you eat the fats of this koi, so it might be the chaylev of a behema, you are obligated to bring a Asham Tali. So according to Rabbi Lazar, this is not a good answer. So Gemara says, Shmuel savik Rabbi Lazar b'chade or palag aleh b'chade. Shmuel agrees to Rabbi Lazar regarding one point, that Yechayev for an Asham Tali only. Again, Yechayev for a Asham Tali by a cheresh. That a cheresh is a suffix. A cheresh is not clearly a person that has no das. So that detail he holds like Rabbi Lazar. But a palag aleh b'chada regarding the other halacha, that Rabbi Lazar said that even if it's just one koi or one cheresh, and there's a suffix about this, that you would have to bring an Asham Tali, regarding that he disagrees. You have to have two chatichais, and there has to be a vadai issa here in order to be chayev the Asham Tali. This is all one version of what Shmuel said. But then there's another version. Omer Rav Chia bar Ashi Yom Shmuel. Eishes cheresh, the wife of a cheresh, chayav an aleh Asham Tali. Someone has a relation with her. You are chayav an Asham Tali for this. And on this, the question was asked, Meisvei, from the Mishnah where you see that a cheresh has no das. Chamisha lo yitraimu, 5 can't give truma, and one of them is a cheresh, and the truma does not take effect at all. And the answer is Savala Rabbi Lazar. He holds like Rabbi Lazar that says that a cheresh is actually an individual that is a suffix if the truma takes effect, and then you would be chayiv an Asham Tali even if you don't have two pieces in a case where there's a vada yisar. So this is the opinion of Rabbi Lazar, and according to this version of the Gemara, Shmuel is paskening like Rabbi Lazar. By Rav Ashi, so now the Gemara wants to understand better what's the basis of what Rabbi Lazar holds. My time with the Rabbi Lazar. Why does Rabbi Lazar say regarding a cheresh that there's a suffix whether he has das or not? Is the pshat as follows: Mifshat pshitele, is it that it's obvious to him the cheresh daite klishtuhu? A cheresh is an individual that has less of a level of awareness of das than a regular human being. But so what's the suffix that he has about the status of this cheresh? Idaita tzilusa, ilav daita tzilusa. Now that lower level of understanding that he has, the question is whether that lower level of understanding is enough of a clear understanding to be considered a bardas or not. Maybe that's a suffix. But this cheresh is a person that has one level of das. We know exactly what that level of das is, but the question is whether it rises enough to the level to be a bardas or not. Or maybe the suffix of Rabbi Lazar regarding the status of a cheresh is different. Pshitale de daite klishte. Yeah, it's clear to him that he has a very weak level of understanding. V'lav daite tzilusahu, and that weak level of understanding is not clear enough. But here, the reason why Rabbi Lazar has a doubt about the status of the cheresh, kiven the itim cholim v'itim shaita. A cheresh is a person, sometimes he's so ill to the point that he doesn't know what's going on around him. He doesn't communicate properly and he doesn't get what's happening with him. But sometimes he'll have a good moment and you can make a transaction with him, you can make a kedushin with him, and he'll get exactly what's going on. This is back in those days when they didn't have the mode of communication with a cheresh. I mean, today, a cheresh could more or less communicate like a healthy person. But in other words, the point is, maybe the pshat is that we can't be sure if he's really getting the communication that we're communicating with him. So sometimes cholim, he doesn't get it, and sometimes he does get it. And that's why it's a suffix. So the Gemara explains, Lamai nafkemina, what would be the practical difference between these two efanim that we just said? Practical difference is lahaitzi ishte beget. According to Rabbi Lazar, could a cheresh divorce his wife with a get? So we had before in the Mishnah, according to the Chachamim, a cheresh cannot divorce his wife because he has no das. But the question is, according to Rabbi Lazar, could a cheresh divorce his wife with a get? If you're going to say that we know exactly what his level of awareness and understanding is. He's not sometimes like this, sometimes like that. We know exactly what it is. So therefore then we say, ki kiddushin kach gedushin. Whatever level of understanding he had when he married his wife, the same level of understanding he has when he divorces her. So therefore they're equal and he can give her a get. But if you're going to say a cheresh is an individual that we don't know exactly if he's getting our communication. Sometimes he gets it, sometimes he doesn't. So then, matzi mekadesh. Chachamim were misakim for a cheresh that he can marry. So he can make a kiddushin. But Gerushin and Matzi Megarish, he's not going to be able to be Megarish, because could be when he got married, he had more das, and it was really more of a real Kedushin. And then when he makes the Gerushin, he has no clue what he's doing, he doesn't chap what's happening, and therefore the Gerushin won't take effect.
Why Kedushin could he make?
That's a takana midrabanan. The Chama were misaken that he should be able to be Mekadesh. But maybe the Kedushin was with a fuller das, and the Gerushin is not, so therefore we can't. The only reason we say that he can make a Gerushin like the Kedushin is if they're equivalent, if his level of das is the same. The Mishnah used the Lashon, just like a person can be Mekadesh b'remiza, it can be Megadesh b'remiza, but not if it's not the same level of das. So what's the Pshat in Rabbi Lazar's opinion? Teiku. This remains unresolved. Neshtatis. Then the Mishnah said that a woman that became a shaita, so now he can't divorce her. If she became a chareshes, he's allowed to divorce her, but if she became a shaita, he cannot divorce her. Why not? We don't need the woman's das for a get. Why, if she becomes a shaita, can't he divorce her? So the Gemara will explain it's the Takanim D'Rabbanan. So Rabbi Yitzchak said, Dvar Teire, Min HaTeire, shaita miskareshes. A shaita could get divorced. Why? Midi dahave apekachas balkarcha. Even if she was healthy and the get was against her will, the get takes effect. So even if she becomes the shaita, the get could take effect as well. So why will the divorce not take effect? It's all gzerim d'Rabbana. Minig hefker. Now that she gets divorced, so other people should not come and treat her as hefker. So the Gemara wants to understand what kind of a shaita are we speaking about. So again, we have to have a case of a shaita that minatayra the get will take effect and midrabbana not. What case is this? Hey chidami, what level of a shaita is this? Ileme, if the case here is the yadas lishma gita, she's aware enough that she could hold her get in her hands and protect it for herself. Yadas lishma atzma, she also knows how to protect herself, that nobody should come and abuse her and so on. So in this case, there's no reason for Chachamim to institute that the get should not take effect. Nobody's going to go and mistreat her. So Ella, what are we speaking about? She can't even hold on to her get. She doesn't know what it means to protect and hold her get for herself. And she can't come and protect herself either. But in such a case, so Dvar Teire, Shaitim is Gareshes, Minat Teire, would this be a Shaitim that the get would take effect? They said by the yeshiva of Rabbi Yanai, the Torah says, you have to place the get in her hand. If she has a hand to be megarish herself, she could accept the get and hold on to it. She can't hold the get in her hand, she can't hold it for herself for the gerishim to take effect. And another drasha, a get consists of the fact that you send your wife away from your house. If you send her away and she knows not to return, that's a get. But if she has no das to realize that she got divorced and she returns, so the get doesn't take effect either. So the question is, what kind of a shaita are we speaking about that minat Torah, the get takes effect, and the Rabbanan came and said that it should not take effect? Answers the Gemara, the case here is the Yidas Lishma Gita. She has enough of an awareness that she knows how to hold on to her get, but how to protect herself, not to be abused by anybody, that level of awareness that she does not have. So Dvar Teire, Shaitim is Garesha. So Minat Teire, this Shaita, the divorce will take effect. The Hayadas Lishma Gita, because she could protect and hold on to her get. But the Rabbanan said, Lo Yilifka, that the get should not take effect. So there should be people should not treat her as Hefker. Amar Abaye brings a proof that this is the Pshat in our Mishnah. That really Minat Teire, the get would take effect, but only with the Rabbanan they instituted that it is not. So they can Diktani, it said in our Mishnah, Gabe Dida, when it comes to her, that she cannot accept a get when she's a shaita, so it says Nishtatis la Yetzi. If she's a shaita, you should not divorce her. The Gabe Didei. Now when it comes to the man, if the man is a shaita, there the Mishnah adds a word. There it says la Yetzi Oylamis. He should never divorce her. Why does the Mishnah add one word here? Why is it that by the man it uses the term Oylamis forever? By the woman, if she's a shaita, like a Tani Oylamis, it doesn't use this word Oylamis. So there's a certain distinction here that the Mishnah is trying to say. Elishmami, no, this proves the point there. By the man, the fact that he can't divorce his wife is Minat Teire, so therefore it uses a stronger term. It says Oylamis, forever. And the Rabbanan, by the woman, the fact that she's a shaita and she can't accept a get is only a takanim of the Rabbanan, so it doesn't use the term Oylamis. Going back to the Mishnah, Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri disagree with the whole distinction we had in the Mishnah. That a man, if he's a cheresh or a shaita, cannot divorce his wife. The man has to have das to divorce his wife. But by a woman, she does not have to have das to accept a get, Minat Teire. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri asks him this, what's the difference? What's the difference between the man and the woman? Should be the same halacha. So the Gemara wants to understand what exactly was Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri's question. The question was asked, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, so now, according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, ish pshitale, was it obvious to him? He understood regarding a man why it is that a man could divorce his wife even if he has no das. V'isha kami bayale, and his question is regarding the isha, that we should say the same thing for the isha, that even if the isha has no das, she should also be able to accept the divorce. Was that his question? Oidilme, maybe his question was in the reverse. Isha pshitale. He understood clearly why a isha, when she has no das, she could still accept a get. Again, let me. I think I might have said this wrong. Let me start this again. Ish pshitale, that it was obvious to him regarding a man, why a man, even if he has no das, he still has the ability to again, if a ish has no das, he cannot give his wife a get, right? If a man has no das, he can't divorce her. The isha kami bayale. His question is, if so, the same thing should be regarding the woman, that if she has no das, she should not be able to accept a get. That's his question. Or maybe his question was the reverse. Isha pshitale. He understood why a woman, if she has no das, she could accept a get. The ish kami bayale. And his question is that the same thing should apply to the man, that even without das, he should be able to give his wife a get. So the Gemara says, let's see in the Mishnah. Tashema, what was the response to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri? They said to him, you can't compare the man to the woman that's receiving the get. A woman goes out whether she wants, whether she doesn't agree. But a man can only divorce his wife if he agrees to do so. So what do we see here? From the fact that it all starts off here with the ish, that it all starts off with saying, they're answering Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. They're explaining to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, no, don't compare the man to the woman. So that shows that the main question over here was regarding the man. Says the Gemara, Adarabe, but no, on the contrary, if you look at what it says afterwards in the Mishnah, what do they say to him afterwards? The Gemara afterwards brings a story there, or the Mishnah that is, brings a case where the woman had no das. And it says, Av Zuka Yaitzaba, and it comes and explains that a woman that has no das could accept a get. So from the fact that they're responding to him regarding the woman, so it seems like over here that the main question that he had was actually regarding the woman. That why is it that a woman that has no das could accept a get? A woman with no das should not be able to accept a get, just like the man. So it seems like that was his main question. So Kitzer, in the Lashon of the Mishnah, it's not, you look at the response to him, it seems unclear. On one hand, it seems like that his main question was that a man should be able to give a get without a das. On the other hand, it looks like his main question was that a woman should not be able to accept a get without das. So the Gemara says both are really true. Ella really as follows. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri l'divreyem ka'amalahu. He was asking on the Chachamim of the Mishnah according to their opinion. So there's 2 points that he was really saying. Lididi, my own opinion, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri was saying was, Kiheichi de ishloi matzi megarish. If a man with no das can't divorce his wife, isha nami loy megarsha. A woman could also not divorce his wife. So his main point, his main question was regarding the woman, that a woman should be just like the man that you can't divorce. That was his main point. He was asking according to their opinion. According to your opinion that you say that a woman could accept a get, so maishna isha, maishna ish, what's the difference between a woman and the man? The man should also have the ability to give a get. So Amrulay, on this they answered him, you can't compare the man to the woman because the man has to have a little tzayna, he has to consent to the get that he's giving. So therefore when you see these two diyukim in the Mishnah, are they answering regarding the man or are they answering regarding the woman? He himself taka held that we compare the man to the woman, and in both cases you should be able to give a get. That was his own opinion. You should not be able to give a get. Both the man and the woman should not be able to give a get. That was Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri's own opinion. But he was asking according to them. You say that the man, you say that the woman could give a get, so the man should also be able to give a get. So that's why you see the two answers that they gave him in the Mishnah. Okay, one more piece here in the Gemara. Hey, Rabbi Yochanan v'chulu. Rabbi Yochanan came and brought the testimony that a woman does not have to have her das in order to accept a get. So Rava says, based on this, based on this testimony of Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgada, we learn the following halacha. A man comes and tells witnesses, Ru'u get shani noisen. See this get that I will be giving to my wife, you should be aidim for this. And then what happens when he comes to give her the get? He tells his wife, here, take this document. It's a document of a loan. So he's lying to her. He's not even telling her he's giving her a get. He's telling her, take this document which is a loan. The divorce takes effect. Why? Even though the woman has no idea what she's doing. Because Mila Yama Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgada loibin and daita. Didn't Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgada say we don't even need her awareness of the get that's taking effect? So she thinks she's getting a shtar chayiv. We don't need her das, and therefore takes the get. It takes effect, that is. So the Gemara asks in this pshita, this is obvious halacha. If she's a shaita or a chareshes, it takes effect. The same should be here when she has no idea what kind of document she's taking into her hand. Why would I think there's a difference? Says the Gemara, no, I would think to say, when the man comes and tells his wife, after he told Adam, look, I want you to see this divorce taking effect. And then he tells her, take this document, which is just a document of a loan. Betuli Batle. By saying this, he's showing that he's not even interested in divorcing his wife. He's mevatel the whole divorce. Kamash Malon, that's why his chiddush over here was, he ised the Batle le'edim avakamalo. If he really meant to annul this whole divorce, he would have told the Adam, forget about it, it's not a divorce. If he didn't tell the Adam it's not a divorce, he did not annul the divorce. Your question is, so why is he telling his wife, take this loan, this document of a loan? He's only using this term because he's embarrassed of her. He's embarrassed of giving her the divorce in her hands and telling her, here's your get. So he's telling her, here, take this loan of a document of a loan, and he walks away. But really, he was never mevatel the get, and therefore, even if she has no awareness, the get takes effect.